Most people think arguing is about being right, but what if it's really about learning how people think wrong? This book taught me that logic isn't just academic, it's armor. And in a world full of manipulation, that might be the most powerful tool you can have. Imagine a world without books. No pages to turn, no sentences to link, no ideas to pass from one person to another. At some point in the past, that was a human condition. Then we found a way to capture a thought, to freeze in time in ink and make meaning travel. This is the story of literacy, of how writing became the wire between minds, and how that wire is now fraying in places we thought safe. So long before paper and printing presses, humans scratched symbols on stone, painted them on cave walls, carved them into clay tablets. These early markings were more than decoration, and they were attempts to remember the communication, to communicate and build power. Then came the alphabet. Of course, we know the first major leap. Letters stood for sounds, not just objects. Then writing became more flexible, accessible, powerful. And by the time the ancient Greek, Romans, and Egyptians worlds came about, literacy was rarer than we may assume. It was the elite who read, the scribes, the priests, the ones who carried the torch of written culture. Books as we know it didn't exist yet. Scrolls did, handmade manuscripts maybe, but each book is an investment of time, labor, and value. So after Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press, suddenly books could be reproduced in large numbers. Ideas could spread, and literacy as well. Books became vessels: science, religion, philosophy, fiction, distant, math. With each page turned, the world changed slightly, and libraries emerged, schools expanded, knowledge leaked from the cloistering towns and then into cities. Now you might be asking me why this matters. Well, right here in the United States, literacy was already above many older nations in the early days. The colonists, especially in New England, believed in the necessity of reading. Now, we might know about the history of the slaves and why they weren't as literate as their counterparts, but it wasn't until the 20th century, public schooling, compulsory education laws, and the spread of books helped bring back literacy rates dramatically. Books became household objects. Books don't just transport words, they carry culture, identity, resistance. Think of a novel that changed the way you see yourself, or a text that introduced you to a revolution, or a biography that made you question your path. For marginalized communities, books have been lifelines, stories of survival, of freedom, of transformation. Literacy became just not the ability to decode symbols, but the ability to participate, to choose, to challenge, and to write back. Today's book has an important meaning, and I will introduce it in just a second. But I would like to make sure that you understand that in the last decades, the nature of reading and writing has changed again significantly. We've been introduced to screens, hyperlinks, social media. These transformations may be good, but they do have some drawbacks. We do have access to ebooks and online libraries on our mobile devices, but our attention is fractured. The depth of reading has changed. The time to reflect shrank. Now, books still exist, but the context of the culture around reading is shifting. Despite all this progress, the U.S. is facing a troubling trend. Literacy is not guaranteed. A recent survey by the National Center for Educational Statistics shows that a large portion of U.S. adults score the lowest of literacy in international comparisons. Many children are leaving school without the reading and writing skills that they need to fully participate in society. Now, the reasons behind why this is complex. For example, educational inequality. Schools underfunded, areas are struggling, and students from low-income families lack the early reading support that they need. Language barriers and immigration. Digital distractions. Adult literacy neglect. The adults that can't read already can't teach their kids how to read because they don't know how to read. And a cultural de-emphasis on books. As we move into the digital age, especially with the introduction of AI, there has been more emphasis on making sure you understand your basic reading and comprehension skills. Welcome back, guys. I decided to do a new type of video today where I have been spending at least 10 minutes a day reading. It doesn't matter if it's a book or an article or, digital or not. I've just been disciplining myself enough to read. So today's book is How to Win Every Argument, The Use and Abuse of Logic by Madison Puri. I hope I'm saying that right. I got this book from the Goodwill years ago, actually. It's been at least 2, going on 3. And I found this out of state, so I was like, I am going to definitely give this a read. Now, although in this video I only read for 10 minutes, I'm going to take up the time by telling you about the book. So in case you want to read it, you don't have to just watch me read it. You don't have to just take my word for it. I'm going to just tell you a little bit about it. Now, contrary to popular belief, this book isn't about winning arguments in a cheap and manipulative way. It's about understanding how logic can both be used and abused. See, Puri goes into logical fallacies, errors in reasoning that sound convincing but are actually false. and teaches you how to spot them, defend against them, and yes, sometimes use them intentionally when you understand their structure. Now, think of it like a training manual for the mind. It makes you sharper, a better communicator, a better debater, a better thinker. Once you learn these fallacies, you'll start to hear them everywhere in politics, media, relationships, advertising, sometimes even your own thoughts. Now, the author, Madison Puri, a Scottish philosopher and co-founder of the Adam Smith Institute, which is a free market think tank in the UK. He's also known for making philosophical, practical, showing how logic, economics, and persuasion shape real-world power and communication. He first published How to Win Every Argument in 1985 and updated later for modern examples like political spin, media framing, etc. This book was made during a time when the public debate, especially in Britain, was shifting from formal, educated discourse into televised rhetoric and emotional persuasion. Puri wrote this to remind people, if you can't think critically, you'll be controlled by those who can. And it still matters today. We live in an age of emotional logic. Social media, influencers, politicians all use persuasive tricks to bypass rational thought. Learning fallacies like the straw man, false dilemma, appeal to emotion, and the slippery slope trains your mind to cut through manipulation. And in the long term, this book helps rebuild a skill that humanity has been losing, intellectual self-defense. And knowing how to argue isn't about winning, by the way. It's about thinking clearly, which is a revolutionary act in a world addicted to confusion. So, language is pretty important, you could say. It is the medium of power. Every argument is a story. It's shaped by tone, rhythm, metaphor, and framing. Understanding logic is one half of the equation. The other half is understanding literary devices, how words themselves can mislead or illuminate. Like, for example, a metaphor makes ideas emotional, e.g., war on drugs, the economy is sick. Or a hyperbole, also known, makes weak arguments sound strong. Things like irony and reversal can reveal the truth much faster than facts can in some instances. And when you learn both logic and language, you gain what ancient rhetorics called logos and pathos, the power to reason and to resonate. Now, just to elaborate a little bit more on what's found inside of the book, like I said, classical fallacies, aka Logic 101, ad hominem, attacking the person, not the argument, the straw man, misrepresenting someone's point to make it easier to defeat, false dilemma, pretending there are only two choices when there are more, and the slippery slope, assuming one action will inevitably lead to disaster. There's also modern manipulation tactics. Like I said, he went back to update the book, so some of the ones he updated were the loaded language, freedom fighter versus terrorist, how phrasing controls perception, the appeal to authority, why name-dropping experts can substitute for real evidence, and special pleading, using exceptions to excuse contradictions. That rule don't apply to me. And then we're left with the psychology of persuasion, Puri acknowledges that logic doesn't exist in a vacuum. A sound argument can still lose to a persuasive lie if the emotional framing is stronger. That's why he doesn't just teach logic, he teaches defensive reasoning, how to keep calm, dissect claims, and reveal structure instead of getting lost in the emotion. This is essential for both philosophers and civilians. And I will say one thing about those emotions I have learned over the last few years. It can take you from thinking clearly and knowing your argument to forgetting everything and responding in a way that you feel attacked and you have to defend yourself. So emotional training is definitely important, and I'm glad that it was hinted on in this book. So if you're looking for more to read by Madison Puri, he's definitely a political philosopher and an educator. Beyond this book, How to Win Every Argument, he's written How to Win Every Argument, The Use and Abuse of Logic, 1985 revised, 2015. The Book of the Fallacy, 1978. This is his earlier version of the book we just talked about. More academic, less humorous. He also wrote 101 Great Philosophers, 2009, a concise introduction to the philosophical thinkers and their ideas. He also wrote Think Tank, the story of the Adam Smith Institute in 2022. This one is a little bit more political, about shaping policy through ideas. And in 2018, he wrote How to Win Every Argument, the expanded edition. This one adds new examples from social media, politics, and digital misinformation. So if you're looking for that, Amazon has some great ones. There's also a few websites that I know of that have these books that are pretty cheap. Some of the historical context about the 1980s and the rise of the rhetoric revival. There were crucial decades, the 70s and the 80s. Mass media was maturing, advertising, psychology was booming, and political messaging became an art form. Books like the Puri's emerged because of the battlefield of the ideas moved from academia to the airwaves, meaning it wasn't just college people talking about this, it wasn't just governments and everybody else in those higher forums. It became the everyday person talking about these things. Talk about postmodernism. This started the objective truth, psychology and marketing fused into the propaganda science. Television debates replaced long-form reasonings. So people were starting to feel more than they thought, and the philosophers noticed. So writers like Puri, Carl Sagan, and Richard Dawkins tried to arm the publics against the rhetoric's dark side. So they tried to give people a way to fight back. And I think it's really important in today's age to realize where stress can come from, especially the stress you have when you don't know what to say it, how to research it, how to talk to anybody about it. These books are very important because you learn metacognition, how to think about thinking. They strengthen the mental immune system against propaganda, misinformation, and emotional hijacking. They help bridge philosophy, communication, and psychology. They make you conscious of the tools people use to control narratives and let you reclaim them for truth, clarity, and creativity. And they just remind us that it's not really just about words, it's about motive, it's about energy, it's about how they make you feel. Literary devices matter. When you think about awareness, logic falls in the real world. The structure of persuasion is emotional first and logical second. Metaphors, tone, and rhythm all guide how we process meaning before we even reach the reasoning. And if it's not important to you now, just remember the next time you go on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, or anything like that, and the first post you see makes you mad, think about why it makes you mad and how to articulate your point. Some similar books: Straight and Crooked Thinking, 1930s by Robert H. Tholles. The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli, 2018. Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. I hope I said that right. The Demon Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark by Carl Sagan. And The Art of Controversy by Arthur Schopenhauer. Pretty sure I said that wrong. But these books are great to add to your library. I myself am trying to look for them, not the digital versions, but the actual paper versions. I have a little library going myself, and I'm so excited to get all these books. So tell me, if you've read this book before, how do you like it? If you're now going to read it, why are you going to read it? Tell me about some of you guys' experiences, especially when it comes to public speaking, or if you wrote papers in college or in high school, or if you were on the debate team. Whatever it is, I want to know. Let me know. I have also included as a link in the description to the essay version of this video. There was way more that I said and wanted to say in this video, but I realized I can't get every word out and keep your attention at the same time. So if you're interested in reading the essay version of this, just click on the link below and I'll see you there.
It's my move forever, ever. Treasures dancing on the bezel. It's kind of feeling unforgettable. Promise this my move forever. Promise is my move forever. Forever and ever.
I hold them sentiments symbolic. My temperament bipolar, I choose violence.